It's winter in Seattle, and this place has no problem living up to all the stereotypes. It's cold, it's wet, and it's gray. And yet, there's a vibrant community of game developers who are happy to call this place home. With well over 100 studios in the area, Seattle is without a doubt one of the largest clusters of development talent in the world. But there are a pair of companies here that tend to get most of the attention. Across the water in Redmond is the home of both Microsoft and the American arm of Nintendo. They're a big influence here, and that extends beyond video games.
If you're looking for a real obvious sign of the influence that Microsoft and Nintendo have held over this area over the years, you could do a lot worse than the two sports stadiums south of downtown. Here you've got Safeco Field, home of the Seattle Mariners, and over there, CenturyLink Field, home of the Seattle Seahawks. The Mariners are owned by Nintendo of America. The Seahawks, well, they're owned by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen.
But Microsoft and Nintendo are stories for another day. I'm here to find out more about the developers who have grown up in the shadow of these two companies. I'm here to learn why so many talented people come to Seattle to make video games. My journey starts here at Bungie. In 2000, Bungie was acquired by Microsoft and went on to define the console first-person shooter with Halo. Then, in 2007, Bungie reclaimed its independence. Now it's working on a new multi-platform shooter franchise called Destiny. I'm hoping that Pete Parsons, the studio's chief operating officer, can tell me a little bit more about those early days and how it's shaped the Bungie we know today.
So Bungie isn't unique when it comes to setting up shop in the Seattle area. Why do you think there are so many developers that are attracted to this part of the country?
Let's see, gray skies, lots of them, coffee, lots of it, and honestly a shitload of really smart people that work up here. I mean, certainly it's a huge technology hub, big startup hub. I think Seattle's known for decades as being a place where everything from music and works of art and technology comes from. So it really is a natural place. It's a great community to work inside of. We're friends with a lot of the studios around town, and yeah, it's a great place to make games.
So yeah, how would you describe the studio culture here at Bungie? I know you guys make these epic sci-fi games, but it seems like you guys also have a pretty good sense of humor and you're not afraid to poke fun at yourselves when the time is right.
You know, if you're ever going to use the words world domination, you better be ready to poke fun at yourself, right? I mean, it is an irreverent place to be. It's a highly self-critical place to be. I think people really like that. You know, I'm often asked, well, what is the one thing that makes Bungie Bungie? And it's a whole bunch of things. First of all, though, at least on my chart, is we've never ever lowered our bar on the people that we hire. We want to hire people that inspire us. And how that translates in our culture is people who they're here to have fun, they're here to have a great time, they're irreverent, they don't mind joking around with people. Yeah, it's a good place to be.
Now in terms of the types of games that you guys make between Destiny and Halo and what you've done before, it seems like Bungie has this really deep-rooted interest in building these huge, epic sci-fi worlds. What is it about that type of genre that appeals to you guys creatively?
Well, I think the sort of space fantasy is awesome, right? I mean, I think people really love to think about the future and what's possible, and they love to think about journeying among the stars. And for Destiny, it was super exciting for us to think about what would it be like to go on a trip through our solar system. You know, to root you in the familiar and then throw a whole bunch of crazy shit at you. And that's been really exciting.
With the success that you guys have enjoyed over the years, you've also attracted in the process a very large, very vocal fan base. Bungie probably has one of the most fervent communities of fans that I could recall right now. How do you think that influences the way you guys approach game development?
Well, we very clearly have the best community in the entire world, and many of those that community actually work at Bungie.
Oh,
we
yeah.
have a lot of the team has come directly out of our community, which is really exciting. We listen to our community. We love to hear what they have to say. We love speaking with them, and they've really become part of who we are, because they many of us are from there. Guys like Chris Butcher, Chris Barrett, Eric Osborne. Dozens of people in our studio come directly from that community.
Now, when you look at the general video game development landscape, you see a lot of studios that are acquired by bigger companies, and that happens all the time.
Yeah.
But rarely do you ever see a company break free and regain their independence, and that's actually something that Bungie has done. How did that happen exactly, and how has that influenced where you guys are today?
Yeah, well, I think Bungie has always been incredibly fiercely independent, even when owned by Microsoft. And so when the original acquisition happened, it was important for both Bungie and for Microsoft to make sure that Bungie remained set apart. I think Microsoft had a lot of experience with teams that ultimately became fragmented. And so it was mutually agreed upon that Bungie would really stay Bungie and have its own management and its own style of doing things. And so that led us to wanting to move out. And it really started when we moved out of the low-rent nerd farm and over to Kirkland. That became the first start of a much longer process with Microsoft, where we ended up all agreeing there was the right thing to do for us to both go our separate ways. That we would continue to make a few additional Halo games, and that would be great for everybody. But that ultimately we love the Xbox as a system, and so it wasn't like we were going to be going that far away. So that process was hard, and it took many, many years to happen, but it was the right thing to do for both parties.
Bungie is one of many developers located in Bellevue, an office park of a city just across the bridge from Seattle. In fact, very few studios are based in Seattle proper, but there are a small handful, including Skulls of the Shogun developer 17-Bit. Looking like a cross between a college dorm and a Japanese retro games shop, the studio is the baby of Jake Kasdal, a veteran artist who spent years making games on both sides of the Pacific Ocean.
So what was it like for you working in Japan? How much culture shock did you experience at first, and how did you settle in?
It's a lot. I mean, I was really not worried, surprisingly. I was like, it'll be fine. My friends were like, dude, you don't speak Japanese. You're going to go work in a Japanese company. What's wrong with you? I was like, nah, it'll be fine. It's great. It's going to be awesome. And I got there, and the first day I was just like, wow, there's 40 people and no one speaks English. What the hell was I thinking? Like, this is ridiculous. They were really cool though. People were really friendly, and they were patient with me. And being that steeped in it, you pick it up pretty quickly.
And how would you compare the process of making games here in Seattle versus back in Tokyo?
Surprisingly, this studio is probably more like a Japanese studio in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
A lot of American studios will do like the cubicle thing, where everyone's got their own little private space, and it's kind of much more close off. I like the Japanese way of kind of a more open workstation space where I can see what everybody's working on. We've got a big open space here. We do tend to work long hours just because we got so much stuff to do, and we're a small crew. Kind of work around the clock. It's not as bad as it was in Japan because they just work around the clock all the time. We only work around the clock when we have to.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, I had a great time there. I learned a lot, and I really liked the production methods that I learned working there, and I apply a lot of that to running this studio.
Now, with a name like 17-Bit, obviously retro gaming is a big part of this studio's identity. Why is that? Why is that the case? Why is that such a big part of the studio's sort of culture?
I think, for me, Super Nintendo games, that was the high point of games. I think I'm a real, purist when it comes to gameplay. Like, it has to be just super tight. And for me, 3D gameplay, there's a level of ambiguity that doesn't, like, your gameplay can't be as tight. Like, you can make a 2D jump in Mario and just understand exactly where you are on that arc at every moment. Where in 3D, it's a lot more kind of guess, it's a lot more loose. You have to kind of feel, maybe I'm gonna make this jump, I don't really know. That's fine. 3D games are awesome, I play them all the time, I love the AAA stuff, but I am at my favorite stuff is the 2D classic, really tight, perfect gameplay stuff. And with the power available to us now, we have crazy hardware, we can do all these huge textures, amazing lighting, all kinds of AI and physics and all this cool stuff from modern gaming. But if you take it back and put it in that super tight 2D shell and kind of revisit some of those classic genres that have been sort of, brushed aside in favor of all the new stuff, there's a really interesting mix there, I think, and so that's kind of what studio is all about.
So I'm kind of curious how you guys get any work done here, because it seems pretty laid back. It's almost like a college dorm room in some ways. How do you make sure that at the end of the day, you're still making games here?
We do work really hard. With the open atmosphere, it is very low-key. I want people to be relaxed and happy coming into work. Like, everyone loves what they do. That's why we spend a lot of time here. And we do end up, working late nights, quite a few nights during the week. We screw around, but like it's always in the interest of getting stuff done.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on the Command & Conquer team before I moved back up here, and that team was the same way. Like, everyone screwed around hard, but they worked really hard too. So it was a perfect balance because it just diffuses a lot of the stress. Everyone's in a good mood, like you're having a good time, but you're working really hard on something that you really care about. Like, that's kind of what the ideal situation is, in my opinion. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and the best teams are the happiest teams. Like, there's just no way about it. There's no two ways about it.
While the guys at 17-bit know how to goof around and have fun, Fifth Cell has taken that practice to an entirely new level. As you can tell, the people who made Scribblenauts aren't too worried about taking themselves seriously. But considering the company's humble origins, it's clear why having a sense of humor is so common around here. Jeremiah Slaska is the creative director, and here's how he describes that origin story.
So I actually came out here to try to get a soccer career going for the Seattle Sounders. And I played soccer for all my life, and I actually got injured about 6 months before the season started, and so basically I had to sit in my butt. Like, the doctor was like, "Look, you cannot practice, you cannot run, you have to rest. Otherwise, you have to have surgery, and the surgery is like a 50-50 chance of even correcting the problem." So I was talking to Joe, and he was in Hong Kong, and Joe was like, "Well, we should start a studio. Like, we should start a studio. You're up in Seattle. They have something going on there." And I was like, "Okay, let's try it." So yeah, we basically started and worked on mobile games, a bunch of mobile games before mobile was cool.
Right. Yeah.
Again, so it was on these Nokia Series 40. They're called Series 40. Crazy story. Those games were 64 kilobytes total. So we're talking art, sound, music, text, all the different languages, everything. Engine, 64 kilobytes, which is insane. But I think it helped us because we learned, we took that and, we were able to make good DS games and stuff like that,
right,
because we knew about how to make kind of compact games and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking back at those, mobile games and licensed games, does it feel like you guys sort of like earned your stripes working on that stuff before you branched out?
Yeah, I mean, we started Fifth Cell always as we wanted to do creative, innovative, original IP.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, really important to us. So for our first 3 games we actually did were original. We worked with THQ. Got a great deal on them. And then there wasn't a lot of original mobile space, like games in the mobile space at that time.
That was a very different era of mobile game development. Yeah. That's not like the App Store like it is today. That was prehistoric.
Yeah, it was, and it was weird because like you just see on your phone, you'd see the word like, we had a SEAL Team 6 game before SEAL Team 6 was a thing. and people would be like, well, do I want the SEAL Team 6 or do I want this Iron Man the movie game? Well, I know what Iron Man the movie is. It's not that it was even back then. But and then they buy that instead because there was no screenshots, there's no reviews, no stars, no hype or anything. So we still did very well.
So you mentioned that one of your goals is to be innovative and groundbreaking, and I imagine that when you come up with new ideas for games, the idea board probably looks a lot like that wall of nonsense behind us in terms of just like which ideas are open for development. So I'm curious like how Fifth Cell approaches what you want out of the next game that you're working on and how you begin development on that.
We've always had an open door policy, so it's like, I'm a 100% firm believer that anyone can have a good idea on any topic at any time, right? Like, are they going to have it all the time? Or are they going to have amazing ideas every day? No, probably not. But, as some programmer or an artist or designer or whatever, even business practices or culture or something, hey, I read this article and I thought about this, or what do you think? Or, I was reading the game design doc, what do you think about this? And it's like, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's, if it makes sense, let's do it. Let's change it. Like, the whole point is, we're together in this, and we want to make, the studio as best as possible, as good as possible. And the way to do that is for everybody to kind of give their input, and make it something amazing.
So what is on the horizon for Fifth Cell? I know that saying you guys want to be innovative and groundbreaking.
Yes.
That's a pretty vague goal. That leaves a lot of doors open.
I think we have a long-term plan that we want to see in action, which is going to take a little while. But our short-term plan is, just keep on working on, the IPs that, have really brought us a lot of, royalties and just we want to expand those and stuff like that. So what's really kind of brought us into the industry as a game studio. So, but in the going forward, I think you're going to hear a lot more of this, but it'll be a couple of years.
Every year, as August turns to September, Seattle plays host to about 70,000 video game fans eager to share their passion for their favorite hobby. That event is called PAX Prime, and since the show's debut in 2004, it's grown by leaps and bounds. Alongside PAX East in Boston, PAX Prime is now the biggest public video games show in the country, giving fans a chance to check out upcoming blockbusters, fascinating indie titles, or just dress up and have fun. Just a few blocks down the street from PAX Prime is the downtown Seattle office of Runic Games. With the release of Torchlight 2, Runic has now made a pair of great action RPGs in the few short years it's been around. But I'll be honest, part of what really drew me here was the promise of meeting Runic's office dog, Falcor. But Falcor doesn't talk much, so luckily I've got studio president Travis Baldry to tell me about how Runic rose from the ashes of another Seattle developer.
Back, I guess, in 2008, there was the burning wreckage of Flagship Studios. And up here in Seattle, we had a team that was working on Mythos, which I guess has been released now. And there were, I want to say 15 of us here, and several of the founders of Flagship got together with us, and we decided to try and save the team that was working on Mythos, and we became Runic. About, I want to say, just days after Flagship officially shut its doors. We bought our old office at liquidation and moved downtown, and after a lot of scurrying around, got ourselves set up.
Yeah, and you guys have managed to build a lot of sort of franchise awareness for Torchlight, despite the fact that you're a relatively small studio.
I think we've really been lucky in that regard. Also, Wonder, our marketing and PR manager, is really great at that sort of thing, and she's done an amazing job of getting the word out and just talking to people in a very conversational way that's kind of in keeping with how we run our studio. Honestly, Steam's been a big component of it too, because I can't say enough nice things about Valve. They have done a really amazing job of promoting us and making sure that people knew our game was available, and it's been pretty fantastic.
Has it been helpful having those guys so close by?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, we've gone over and talked to them a few times.
Runic is a studio that's been around for, I guess, almost 5 years now. How does the sort of atmosphere and culture of the place compare now with what it was back when it was 15 or so people?
I mean, it's definitely bigger. We can't all fit around the same table in a bar anymore, which, I kind of miss those days. It was pretty nice, but I think we still have a nice family feel. We just took everybody on vacation a couple of weeks ago, and it was really nice to all go together with our families and just hang out for a week. Runic's basically made up of people who I think like each other, and that's been really helpful in actually shipping things.
And I think my very favorite thing is that this is something you can't say about a lot of studios. You have an office dog, right?
We do have an office dog, yeah. And of course he's in the game too.
And as somebody who's located so close to PAX, what's it been like for you guys to see that show grow so much year over year?
It's pretty impressive how fast it's grown. I mean, it's not that too long ago that it was just E3 is the only show anybody went to, and now PAX, as far as we're concerned, has kind of supplanted it. The thing I really like about it is that it's mostly game players there. It doesn't feel like, it's not so businessy.
Right.
One of the things that's fun about it, at least for us as developers, is we see it as it's like showing what you're working on to friends. You always kind of want to put your best foot forward. You want them to see it at its best. You want to make sure that it's really ready for them to play. So every time on the run up to PAX, it's always kind of a scramble for us. We're like, oh, we want this to feel as good as possible. We want it to be playable. We don't want it to be smoke and mirrors. And so it's kind of a galvanizing moment right before PAX.
There's a constant supply of fresh development talent in Seattle, and for that, you can thank DigiPen. This university for aspiring game developers offers courses in everything from programming to sound design. DigiPen is a relatively small school where video games are the primary focus, but don't let its size fool you. DigiPen is consistently ranked as one of the top game design programs in the country. There's probably no better example of a local developer who's taken advantage of this emerging talent pool than Valve. You remember Portal, right? Well, it was a precursor to Portal called Narbacular Drop that convinced Valve to hire a group of DigiPen students and turn their senior project into a full-fledged game. And the same thing happened a few years later when Valve saw a student project called Tag, The Power of Paint, and decided to hire those DigiPen students to work on the crazy gel surfaces in Portal 2. But Valve isn't just made up of local talent. In fact, one of the most interesting things about the company is just how different everyone's background is. Here's Robin Walker explaining how his experience working on the original Team Fortress mod took him from his home halfway across the globe to Valve's offices here in Bellevue.
Myself and a couple of friends back in college in '96 had made a mod for Quake 1 that we called Team Fortress. And we shipped that online and it got pretty popular. And amongst a bunch of other people who were interested in talking to us, Valve was interested in talking to us. And at that time they hadn't really shipped anything. You know, no one knew who these people were or anything. Yeah. I think the difference between them and everyone else was visible almost instantly in that everyone else wanted to have long email discussions about possible business collaborations and stuff like that. And we were really young, we didn't know what we were doing. But Valve was sort of one email of, you guys interested in talking to us about, you know, this game we're working on called Half-Life and making a version of Team Fortress for it? And we said, yeah, and the next day, you know, plane tickets showed up and we were, you know, on a flight to the US. So it was pretty visible immediately sort of how, I guess, proactive, you know, they were even back then. So I've been here ever since. I've worked on, you know, like most people here, I've worked on almost everything we've shipped. It's only been in the last couple of years really that we've got big enough that we can actually work on multiple big projects at the same time. In the past, we'd all jump on to whatever project was shipping and help out. So I'm a programmer at my core. I've done leadership stuff. I've you know, try to contribute to design wherever I can and worked a fair bit on our corporate culture with other folks here and our hiring and stuff like that. But just try to make myself useful.
So Valve has this reputation for, you know, not shipping a product until it's totally ready, it's done, it's 100% good to go. And TF2 was one of those games that was many, many, many years in the making. Can you talk about your experience working on that game for all those years and just making sure that you had this thing figured out?
You know, as you ask the question, it's interesting to think about how much we've changed as a company over the years, because I don't think we would describe ourselves as a company now who thinks that you have to work on something until it's perfect and then you ship it. You know, that we've done a huge amount of learning in the last few years, and I think are coming sort of heavily ending up in the space where the right thing is more to figure out how can we as soon as possible start getting customer feedback on what we're doing. And you see that in, you know, things like Dota, where we could have, you know, we could still be working on it today and not releasing it, but that would be a terrible decision for Dota.
Valve is a company comprised of people from very different backgrounds and skill sets, but as Eric Johnson explains, there tends to be at least one common trait to the type of people they look to bring on board.
We don't sit around and spend a bunch of time thinking about how to design the culture of Valve. We spend a huge amount of time sitting around deciding what are the qualities of the people that we think will be successful at Valve. And the thinking is that those cultural and identity things they'll change over time, absolutely, but we'll still be on the right track as long as we hire the right people.
So what type of people are those? I'd imagine that you probably need pretty thick skin and a good sense of direction, right? Considering that you have all these peers who are on your same playing field.
We have varying levels of success with people that don't have a huge amount of experience or haven't shipped a lot of products. So we tend to hire you know, people that were probably running organizations of, you know, either art or programming or business at other companies. People tend to be very self-motivated and not require a lot of direction, but all those other things beyond just the best programmer, the best artist, or the best business person, all the understanding of customers and being able to work collaboratively in a group, those are just as important to being somebody that we want to work with.
And as the company grows, how do you stay nimble to the point where you can self-correct as quickly as possible?
I mean, that's still just hiring the right people. Yeah. I mean, that is the answer for it. We don't feel like there's some hard upper limit on the right number of employees. We've never really understood even the term headcount, where I need 80 people to build this product or that. Because we tend to think more in terms of like, well, these 3 people are good at this thing, why don't they go build that? Or maybe it's all of these people want to go build, this product or this feature. That's fine too. So we don't think in terms of numbers of people. It's just making sure we're always hiring the right kind of people.
Perhaps the most telling thing about the Seattle development community isn't the list of developers we've covered here, but all the ones we haven't. ArenaNet, PopCap, Sucker Punch, 343, Turn 10, the list goes on and on. Sure, Seattle can get a bit gloomy during these winter months, but it's managed to attract and foster a huge, thriving community of game developers. Easily one of the largest such communities in the world. And if you're a student looking to break into your dream career, isn't that worth a little bit of rain once in a while?
Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes, it's a duck blur. We'll solve a mystery and rewrite history. DuckTales, ooh. Bum, 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 bum. DuckTales, ooh.